I remain the primitive of the trail I blazed. Born in Piedmont, Louis-Auguste Cézanne was a hatter before he became a wealthy banker in Aix-en-Provence. He bought a house and a domain located on the outskirts of the town called Jas de Bouffon. Paul, his son, was 20. To decorate the lounge room of the family house, the young painter creates the 4 seasons. In the background, behind autumn, a mountain. During repeated stays in Paris, Cézanne is reunited with his best friend from his childhood in Aix, Émile Zola. He paints portraits, still lives. He copies Delacroix at the Louvre. And he goes to Aix regularly, where he composes landscapes with intense colors. Sometimes in the background, the outline of a mountain. Cézanne also paints strange scenes, orgies, bacchanals, even murders. A painting for Zola. Pluto abducts Proserpine and takes her to the underworld. In the background, a mountain painted with a palette knife. An industrial landscape near Aix. In the background, the blue figure of the same Massif. Here, Mont Saint-Victoire, the mountain which stands outside Aix, is easily recognizable. In the early 19th century, François-Marius Granet represented the mountain with a determination which foreshadowed Cézanne's. At the Granet Museum, the Aix Museum of Fine Arts, Cézanne saw his paintings. 60 million years earlier, there was nothing but sea, lagoons and marshes in the process of sedimentation here. This crust heaved, folded and rose high in the air. The limestone folds subsided, broke up and eroded. The break which resulted gave birth to a 12-kilometer-long ridge. The Teutons and the Ambrones invaded the area, which was reconquered by Caesar. Citadels, obscure battles. The mountain is supposed to be named after the victory of Marius over the Teutons in 102 BC, but some think the name is a corruption of Venture, a god of wind. In the 17th century, a trader from Aix had the Mont Venture chapel restored and dedicated it to Our Lady of Victory. Henceforth, the mountain will be a holy victory. According to folk tales, caves and ravines are inhabited by mythical characters. Near one of the peaks, the chasm of Garagai is thought to be the mouth of a volcano which stirs from time to time. Marius is said to have thrown 300 Teuton prisoners into it, and the golden goat cavorts about the mountain too. In Paris, Cézanne meets a young model, Hortense Fiquet. They settle at L'Estaque, near Marseille. In 1872, Hortense gives birth to a boy, Paul. Cézanne often goes back to Aix, hiding his liaison with Hortense from his father. The arrival of the railway cuts through a hill next to the Jas de Bouffon domain. The emotional artist paints it as a bloody scar. Looming over the landscape and balancing the emptiness of the cutting, the Mont Saint-Victoire. During the following years, Cézanne works in Pontoise and Auvers-sur-Oise with Camille Pissarro. Pissarro introduces him to outdoor painting. He teaches him to master his deepest urges by confronting the motif. The painter also does variations on the theme of the bathers. an impressionist memory of teenage swims in the River Arc with his friends Émile Zola and Baptiste Baille. In these compositions, which Cézanne will continue to make until his death, the mountain can occasionally be seen. He dedicates several paintings to the village of Gardanne, perched on high south of Aix, where he spends some time with Hortense and young Paul. He also explores the hamlets around Saint-Victoire. Seen from the south, the mountain looks like an even cliff, a reflection of the mineral strata of the landscape. Through a limited range of colors and arid simple lines, Cézanne develops a new style, a kind of primitivism. Cézanne settles at Jas de Buffon. He has legalized his situation with Hortense by marrying her. His father dies, leaving his son a handsome inheritance. Still life. He paints mainly outdoors, often in the grounds. In the background, fluid brushstrokes render the pale sky and the blue-grey outline of Saint-Victoire. The peak is hidden behind a clump of trees. The mountain remains distant, as if forbidden. 1886, Zola publishes The Masterpiece, a novel about a painter of genius, but also a failure who ends up committing suicide. The novelist based his work on the lives of Manet and Monet, but especially on his childhood friend Cézanne. A 30-year-old friendship comes to a painful end. Shy, hating to be disturbed by onlookers, considered as an eccentric and disliked by the people of Aix, the painter wants to work in remote locations. One of his sisters buys a large estate, less than 2 kilometers south of Jas de Buffon. Cézanne paints the farm and the pigeon loft of Bellevue. There too he paints several views of Saint-Victoire. They will be followed by many others over the next 20 years. The mountain seen from 10 vantage points around Aix-en-Provence, always to the west of it. Motif. The word conjures up textile decoration or music, hence repetition. "45 watercolors, 36 paintings scattered in numerous museums around the world." Amsterdam. Seen from this angle, the Massif looks like a truncated triangle. It is a deserted landscape organized into regular compact units. A pink cloud with feminine shapes. Philadelphia, Barnes Foundation. Looking down towards the cultivated fields, Cézanne raises up the mountain and the hills in his field of vision. London, Berggruen Collection. The plane surfaces have been replaced by an accumulation of small oblique strokes. Edinburgh. A little to the south of Bellevue, at a place called Montbriand, the plateau extends into a woody hill overlooking the valley of the Arc. Paris. Cézanne paints the valley from an elevated spot, a terraced reservoir of which he shows the edge. To the right, the railway bridge crosses the arc and follows a wide curve towards X, located behind the trees to the left. The curve of the bridge fascinates Cézanne, who along this frontal axis sees the structure as an almost straight line. Cézanne no longer uses the classical method, which consists in painting the relief by modelling shadow and light. He applies rectangular strokes of the same module next to each other, which gives a tapestry effect. He gives up modelling for modulating. The painter tunes the hues step by step according to the internal logic of the painting, hence his reputation for being slow. If one hand is held too high or too low, it won't work. Not a single link should be too slack, leaving a hole through which the emotion, the light, the truth can escape. You must understand that I work on the whole canvas, on everything at once. With one impulse, with undivided faith, I approach all the scattered bits and pieces. To the left, a tall umbrella pine, isolated, bending a little. It can be found in several drawings, watercolors, and paintings. New York. The painter has walked down the hill closer to the great pine. It now looks straight, as seen along its bending axis. The main thing in a painting is to find the right distance. The tree is at a distance of 30 meters, the hamlet of Beauval slightly more than a kilometer, the centre of the viaduct 3 kilometers. The Grand Carme Hill 7 kilometers, the crest of the Sangle mountain 11 kilometers, and the summit of Mont Saint-Victoire 13 kilometers. In reality, this is a deep, rather empty landscape, and the soft relief of the mountain draws the eye towards the background. Yet through the painter's eye, the landscape looks less hollowed out and more compact as well. Cézanne cheats with the mountain. He brings it closer, makes it bigger and more present through all sorts of devices. He creates links between separate spaces. Just as the viaduct links both sides of the Arc Valley, the trunk of the tree in the centre and the dark bulks of the branches unite the foreground of the landscape to the background. The receding lines which could enhance the depth of field are eliminated. A few diagonal lines focus the eye to the left of the painting and reduce the attraction to the background. Finally, the shapes echo each other. The winding road seems like a reflection of the curves of the mountain. The branches of the pine, close to the viewer's eye, echo the distant slopes. Cézanne uses the mountain and the hills to enclose his landscape, to reduce the aggressive strength of its axes, to make it stable and turn it into a separate world whose elements are linked by plastic relationships. The space is unified, the lines, shapes and colours are balanced. Cézanne perpetuates the tradition of the painter he most admired and in whose work precisely the mountain often plays a fundamental part. I want to repeat Poussin's work after nature. Cézanne's intention is not to go back to the 17th century order and its techniques of illusion and rendering of the matter, but to recompose a new classicism by linking motif and sensation. Cézanne paints his landscapes by getting rid of history, anecdote, the picturesque, and even characters. An exception in the Saint-Victoire landscapes, in the foreground, on the road, a stooped character seems to be walking. Washington, Phillips Collection. Further down on the edge of a pine wood, the same landscape. The curves of the branches and the curves of the mountains match as they would in a Japanese etching. London, Courtauld Institute. Thus, the Saint-Victoire paintings make up several series. Yet Cézanne is not trying, as Monet is at the same period, to capture the changing variations of light. For Cézanne, the Saint-Victoire landscape is probably, and above all, a formal experience. Digging into the space, analysing its tiniest fragments according to Impressionist principles, while at the same time reshaping it into a new architectural order. But this would have been an incomplete experience if Cézanne had not tried to transcribe not so much what he saw as what he felt. The painter is made up of two things, the eye and the brain. Both need to help each other. They have to be mutually developed. The eye develops through the vision of nature, the brain through the logic of organized sensations, which gives the painter the means of expression. Organizing the sensations is a genuine spiritual experience. Cézanne discovers the motif with an innocent eye. He sees it through minute tones. He fragments his feelings. Plastic vision, sensation, and memory concentrate in each tiny stroke, as well as pure thinking and the quest for a hidden meaning of nature. The stroke binds the world together, gives it a structure, perhaps a meaning. Moscow. At last, the painter stops at the bottom of the hill. Moving the position of the easel totally transformed the landscape. On a plateau located outside Aix, just before the mountain, is the quarry at Bibémus. There, Cézanne rents a shed for some time. The painter has a passion for contrasts between the warm colours of the rock and the cool colours of the foliage and the sky. Ravines, caves, ambiguous clefts, strange forms, shapeless fragments. And the mountain, as always. Baltimore. The mountain looks as if it suddenly sprung up from the yellow cliff. The disturbing cleft bears witness to the hatching. And, by chance, the chromatic range of the location is very lively, with a violent contrast between complementary colours: orange and blue, red and green, yellow and violet. Born out of titanic struggles, the summit is no longer a pedestal for the gods, as in Poussin's work. It has become a god in itself. At the time, Cézanne lived on his own like a hermit, away from his wife and son, who spent most of their time in Paris. One of his favourite spots is the road to Le Toulonnais, a minor local road linking Aix to the hamlets south of the mountain. Cézanne paints by the roadside, about 100 metres from a couple of great umbrella pines, which